Boom! Welcome to Tokyo Tonight 2. Tonight we have Russia versus Spain for the World Cup starting in half an hour. So for the people who want to watch that, certainly I'm going to try to keep it short. I want to watch that too, so I'm going to keep it relatively, I say this every week, I'm going to keep it short, but I'm going to try to keep it short. For people who are interested in my Chan TV, and I see that Lauren Sakai, they're one of my super users, is there, so I have some good news. A few of that, finally had some progress on some of the bugs that I wanted to fix. For example, sometimes when you log in, it won't load all of your channels. Like I've got like 965 channels, and sometimes it only loads like 800, and you have to manually like refresh the channel loading or whatever. That's one issue, just been fixed. I've tested it every way that I can, and it seems to now finally be done. Another thing that we just fixed was, what else? There's a couple. There's one that we had. The bundles themselves weren't always refreshing like every day. Managed to get that, so that seems to now be working. I'm going to keep verifying that. There were also some channels that just wasn't capturing the videos properly for. There were some, like Ray William Johnson, for example, was one that I found in some of my tests. It wasn't, for some reason, capturing videos from that channel. So we went in, we figured out what was wrong, and we fixed it. Some other cool things also going on at the moment. Yeah, it looks like we are. These are really the big bugs. If we can get all of these out, I think we'll be ready to settle, do the proper launch version, and then look at maybe I would like to do a Kickstarter for getting a proper app, like getting an iPhone app and an iPad app. It's really solid at the moment. And Lauren, I know, and it was killing me as well. What it means is that reliably you will log in and all the channels will load, and when you click on the bundle, it will make sure that there's a batch happening in the background, so those bundles without any loading will be up to date. Some other things we're going to do, like for example, we're still working on trying to get the without slowing it down too much, to get the time that the channel was last refreshed. So for example, and to be able to sort your videos, your channels that way, which means you'll be able to clean out all of your dead subscriptions. So getting close now. This one took a long time to get fixed, but yes, some progress. So go have a play around. It is working really great now. Particularly, I find actually I'm finding more and more I'm using it less to watch lots of bundles at once, but actually just have single channel bundles, and just to be able to watch a single channel, particularly for really active ones like a TV show. It's a great way to catch up. So that's really cool. And no, we're seeing some big things, so I really hope that we're ready to get to the full launch, where again I need to figure out, I've spent an awful lot of money on this, but I think it is really cool, and there's nothing else like it. So I would like to get a paid app out there, and I would like to look at getting like a pro mode, or maybe just a Patreon or something, but I need to start actually trying to recover it. But the site's really cool, and the basic functionality that you can see is the plan is to leave it, but the main thing is to get all the bugs out. So that's really cool. That is a few minutes already used up when we only have 25 more minutes for the people who want to watch the World Cup. So let's get into the topics tonight. There's actually quite a few. I thought there wasn't that much, but there's actually quite a bit. There's just interesting stuff which I found to read. Let's say hello to everybody first, though. That's the most important thing. Andrea, you're here and you've gone. Well, you're in Australia, so I know that you must be sleepy, so have a good night there. Sergeant Bilko, the man in Sweden, good to see you indeed, and thank you for bringing the boom, which I also try to do. We also have Lauren, we've got Quint Ranked, boom indeed. We also have, and Andrea's there, there we go. Kimmy Kim is there, and yes, she says, well, he says boom as well. I assume it's a she, but it might not be, who knows. We've got James Kelly, boom, everybody is booming, which is good. That's what I want. Brad Ford, good to see Brad Ford, your hair. Yeah, your hair. One other cool thing that I did this week, just totally personal, and I'm not going to share the information about it, but I went and did the 23andMe when I was in America. I dropped off the I thought it'd be fun to do the 23andMe thing, the health and the ancestry. I've done the ancestry thing before, like the family tree stuff, and pretty much the numbers came out exactly as I understand the numbers are, which was a little bit, I was hoping I'd find that I was, Guatemalan or something, interesting. But, I'm extremely English, I guess it comes out, but with some other things, but all the other things that I know. Still kind of cool. Anyway, I was glad I did it, and actually it turned out genetically, I was a little bit worried about the risk of having, genetic health risk being recorded by someone. I suppose that is a roll of the dice. Fortunately, it came out pretty well, so I'm all good with that. Believe in yourself. Good to see you. And let's quickly go through the topics that we have. So the first thing is that everyone knows by now about the Hello Kitty train. This is from the 500 series train that runs between Osaka and Fukuoka. It doesn't actually run to Tokyo, this train. So if you want to ride on it, you got to go to West Japan. This train was previously the Evangelion train, in the various. It is, to me, it looks like an F-16. It is the coolest looking model of bullet train, even though it's been around since the 90s. It's been around for a long time. The latest upgrade, however, there's a 2chan discussion that apparently, even for the most hardened train fans, this current one, let's see if I can get the link to it. Maybe here. The interior of it, they're really, like everyone knows this is a Hello Kitty train, but apparently it is too much. There's some dodgy looking ads here, apart from the fact you've got this. I mean, some of the old men on Nichan said they would feel a little bit uncomfortable actually riding on this train. So the outside, I mean, it's what you'd expect. It's a Hello Kitty. But this is pretty full on. I mean, this is pretty much, 4-year-old's dream playroom, level. Not that there's anything wrong with that sort of thing. Let me just try to get the focus sharp there. It's a bit blurry. Mr. Blurry Cam. Let's try. Oh! It was sharp there for a second. It's pretty sharp. Oh, there we go. Okay, it looks like changing the direction helped. As you can see, when we say that they did a Hello Kitty makeover of the train, they really, really did a Hello Kitty makeover of the train. I mean, they didn't really leave much. I mean, not a good train to ride, perhaps, if you're hungover. I mean, very good for some people. Maybe not so great for some other people. I mean, look at that. That's where you put your suitcases. But there again, I mean, I suppose that's some hardcore stuff right there. And if you're gonna, if you want to ride on a Japan themed train, I mean, that's what you got to do. So yeah, ASDF Bikuri Mark 12131. Hey, indeed, the J vlog. I've finally learned what that means. It is very pink. It is extremely pink, and it's so pink that it's actually making some of the Nichan people. Top comment, wow. Yeah, some people saying that's a little bit more than they were even imagining. Yeah, the colors actually exceeded what they were imagining. Even for the Nichan people knowing this was coming, they're like, man, this is like making my eyes flicker. Some people are saying, yeah, for an old man like me, this is just a little bit too much. I'm not sure I could ride this train. Some people are saying anyway. New tax rules. Apparently before you could actually get tax exempt status if you went to a duty-free shop or certain designated categories of things worth above 5,000 yen shopping in Japan. However, the Japanese government wants to promote shopping by foreigners. So they're actually making it pretty much, I believe they've just changed it this weekend, that if you buy anything in Japan with more than 5,000 yen, you'll be able to claim a tax refund for it, the 8% tax refund, which might help to offset the outgoing airport tax, which I know that is stupid that they're going to be imposing from next year. But they do want foreigners to come to Japan, and they do want you to shop, and if you spend more than 5,000 yen, they'll make it worth your while. So it's a good thing. I'm going to get my chat in the picture, so long as it focuses, which it does. There we go. So good news if you're coming to Japan, you want to shop. This is just a really good article. I think Rochelle Kopp originally shared it, and I reshared it. It's just it explains why Japanese house prices go down, and actually the other thing which I also get a little bit confused by myself even after all this time as to why land and houses in Japan are sold separately. And basically it comes down, well, apart from the traditional thing that earthquakes would just knock them over all the time, apparently there was also a thing where after World War II, when everyone lost all their houses and the government rushed to build government housing, the housing that was rushed to be built basically was crappily built. It had no insulation, which is still a big problem today. And they were pretty flimsy in earthquakes and so on. So basically, the idea of as time went on, they kept improving the building standards and the attraction towards second-hand houses, on top of the general people letting them just go get crappy and old. And depreciate. This was one thing, and then of course they progressively improve the building standards and the earthquake standards, which means as well people don't want to buy a house that's under the old earthquake standards. All of this generates an economy based on building new buildings all the time. I mean, construction is a massive thing in Japan. and banks are also more willing to loan to people who buy new houses than second-hand houses. So people don't want to buy second-hand. Typically they allow them to run down. Apparently there are 10 million abandoned houses in Japan. I didn't know the number was that big. But this is the thing, you can build houses over and over on the land, and they keep improving and changing the building standards. So the land is really considered more valuable than the houses. The houses are worth nothing. They're like second-hand cars after a period of time. So yeah, just really interesting. It just explains kind of the unique dynamic and how it got there, that we just have this thing in Japan, which is for me as well why I can't really feel justified buying in Japan. But yeah, that's super interesting. Anyway, this camera I featured before, I think it's really interesting. They basically use little internal mirrors to be able to get really good cameras, and 16 of them to basically create the effect of a virtualized large lens on a smartphone. You know, the promise of the technology is maybe better than the demonstration device that came out, and it's super expensive, but the promise that this would get into a phone form factor is apparently going to come, which I think is really cool. I mean, the whole back of, I think if we can get like DSLR type, you know, photos and videos on smartphones, this is pretty much the way to do it, you'll get there. Where's Cordy? I think he's supporting Russia. I don't know. In fact, now that you mention it, that's right, it did all seem very peaceful. I hope he's okay, actually. He or she, because of course I don't know. Lauren Sakai, by the way, mentions she knows a lot of females who want to ride it, so maybe that they're aiming for a different demographic with the Hello Kitty J. Well, indeed, that's possible. Although, in the end of the day, it is a bullet train that people just want to have to, you know, that they have to ride if they go between Fukuoka and Osaka. So, but yeah, I'd ride it. Geez, I'd ride it. I'd take a whole bunch of Instagrams and try not to be hungover at the time. Tai Nakamura, indeed. Good to see you, sir. Just a reminder to everybody that I'm speaking slightly faster than usual, although still I guess I always talk pretty fast, but it's 10:43 Japan Standard Time at night. In 17 minutes, of course, the Russia versus Spain World Cup match is going to start. I know a lot of people want to watch that. I want to watch that too, so I'm going to rocket through this. I'm going to keep going. This was interesting. So Horie, the founder of LiveDoor, kind of an IT, I don't know, kind of a Japanese IT entrepreneur, rich person. In fact, after he got out of LiveDoor, I think he bought Soft On Demand, which is one of the biggest adult film production companies, which is a big industry in Japan. And you know, he's got a lot of money and spends it however the hell he wants, and he decided he'd make a freaking rocket. Had its first, I believe, launch test. It was the #2 rocket, but I think this was the first actual flying launch test version. In Hokkaido, apparently they had VIP seats around the launch pad ready to watch the glorious first ever Japan privately made rocket launch successfully into orbit. It got about 10 meters off the pad, and then it kind of fell down, and then it kind of like just exploded. Apparently the gallery was sat there in awkward, stony silence. I don't know, I mean, it's kind of cool. They should appreciate, you know, they went there for a rocket show and they got a fireworks show. There's actually a great documentary on NHK. There's a series called Project X, and the series on the H2 rocket, now the H3 in Japan, but the H2, which they tried for years and years, and you know, every single one of them would blow up. They must have blown up dozens of rockets with hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billions of dollars worth of satellites. And they're talking with the engineers about, you know, how over like 20-30 years they kept trying over and over to make a rocket that wouldn't blow up, you know, unsuccessfully every time. And they said, you know, they themselves at times felt like they were making fireworks. But yes, the J-Vlog, did I read, asks me, did I read about the Red phone that is coming out? I did hear about that. Can film and play holographic video, very Star Wars-ish. I have heard that. I'm very much interested in that. I guess it's going to be Android based. Kimmy Kim Kim, FIFA, not really FIFA, but it's like the only soccer that I watch every 2 years. I am coming back, by the way, on the Japan match against, not Senegal, against Poland, but yes, indeed, it is fun to watch. And you know, the game last night, I didn't watch the second game because it was just too late, but the first game, France and Argentina, that was that was a fantastic game. You know, it was a great match. So even though I don't really care about it very much, I don't watch club football or anything like that. I'll watch the World Cup. Child custody rulings in Japan plan to be easier to enforce. Well, this is just the Hague Convention. So as you may or may not know, because Japan doesn't basically have a family law system. There's a family law court, but it really is more a mediation system for handling divorces. In Japan, most divorces, simply, generally the father loses all contact with the children and the family. They just prefer not to keep this awkward kind of keeping visitation rights and all that sort of thing. Obviously, we're a bit beyond that, but we've had, we've had more normalization of divorce and joint custody and all that sort of thing. It's not so normal in Japan. Family law is a really tough thing. I mean, when I did law in New Zealand, I mean, it's one of those things. There are more murders in family court than there are in criminal court. You're dealing with everybody having the very worst day of their lives. So it's a very, very tough thing, and Japan doesn't even have a system for it. So on top of that, Japan, because it doesn't really have a child custody system, it meant that it didn't have the ability to have custody orders or to enforce them, which meant that there were a lot of cases of international marriages involving Japanese people that, in the case of a divorce, even though there was a child custody order, and indeed this is very common, an order that the mother or father, that the foreign parent is not allowed to return to their home country. The child has to stay in a certain location where both parents can access. A lot of Japanese people said, screw this, I'm going back to Japan. They'd take the kid back to Japan, where there's no enforceability of overseas family law court orders. And essentially this is called parental abduction, and this used to be a huge problem that in international marriages, that people would basically take the kid away from the access to the other parent. So essentially removing, even though it's a parent, you can have parental abduction in violation of a court order, and they go to another country either to get a different court or law order that's favorable to them, and typically of courts will favor keeping them in the same country. So it was this huge problem, and Japan didn't even participate in this at all. The Hague Convention was designed, this is something I had to do back in the day as a student, was designed to prevent the idea of parents trying to gain a strategic advantage by abducting their kids, to remove the incentive of parents to take their kids out of the country in order to get, find a friendly legal system, to have all these legal systems that would basically mutually agree that they'd recognize the orders of the other countries and not create a system of legal systems fighting against each other. However, Japan didn't participate in the system, and parents continued to take advantage of it, basically, where, if you got your kid to the airport and back to Japan, you won. You could stop the other spouse even seeing the kid anymore. And this has been a big problem for a long time, under prolonged international pressure, particularly from America. Japan signed up to the Hague Convention system about 6 or 7 years ago. Unfortunately, it's not backward working. It only works forward with orders made from the time that Japan joins the Hague Convention. But at least now there is the hope that parents who, for example, are supposed to have access to their kids and the child is returned to Japan, Japan will respect a system which will force the kid and to be returned to the original jurisdiction. In some cases, not in all cases, and a minimum will give the other parents the access rights that they had in their home jurisdiction and not get an advantage from it. Great, but the big problem is that even though it's not working for all the parents that were victims of this before, only for the ones that have happened since the system came in. But even since it came in, there's no system of family law in Japan really in place that really actually meaningfully causes enforcement of this. So again, Japan's been under continuous pressure to improve its family, to modernize and create a family court, a family law and custody system. They're working on it in baby steps, but it's obviously it's been a sensitive and a very slow issue, and it's terrible for the parents that are involved. And if you ever get married, it's one of those things that you should know. If you are in an international marriage in Japan or considering one, this is a big risk, particularly in the case of divorce. That it's better than it used to be now. You're more protected than you were a few years ago, but it is a thing that if a Japanese parent takes their kids back to Japan, they still basically can block access, and it's a terrible thing for the people that it happens to, and it's a terrible thing for a lot of the kids in these situations. Baby steps. Japan is improving in this area, and that is good news. Rainy season ended the other day. This is the earliest ever recorded that rainy season ended. It's supposed to be raining from like late May until like from late May until like mid-July. But here we are, I think it was like June 29th, and they just said, it's just been stinking hot, I have to play rugby today. There were kids there with like heat stroke. I mean, we were trying to keep ice, trying to keep people in the shade, make sure, whatever, but it's 33 degrees, the humidity is up, people just aren't used to this heat yet. It's too early, and if it's starting now, it makes me very fearful of how hot the summer's going to be here. Summer in Tokyo is just miserable. Oh yeah, but that does remind me, we are having a summer YouTube party. It's going to be when the weather is a little bit better on September the 1st. I think I mentioned this before, but I'm going to say it again. There is an RSVP on my Facebook site, which you can go and check in the events associated with my Facebook page. same as all the other years, the Tokyo Sports Cafe from, I think I've got it from 7 p.m. Was it 6 p.m.? Well, 6 p.m. for setting up, 7 p.m. for starting. 2 hours, 3,000 Nomi Hodai for 3,000 yen, but then we just get to keep taking over the bar like we have. The Tokyo Sports Cafe, it's right beside the Roppongi intersection. Victor is coming up. We're both going to be holding the party again. We couldn't do it last year because we were both traveling, but we're going to do it this year. The Hanami, the vibe of the Hanami this year was awesome. And yeah, I think the community is kind of in a more positive place at the moment than it's been in recent years, and I think we want to capitalize. I think it's going to be a really, really awesome party, so look out for that. In Roppongi, 7 p.m. Saturday, September 1st. Be there or be square. If you can come to Japan, hang with us. It's going to be awesome. So we do have that, but until then it's going to be stinking hot. So maybe save that trip you're planning for July or August until September the 1st, and then come and hang out with us at the big party. What else have we got here? So Japan's jobless rate is now 2.2%. There are 160 jobs available being advertised at the moment for every 100 job seekers. Japan has a serious underemployment problem. It cannot attract people to do jobs, particularly low-paying jobs, like, you know, for example, convenience store workers and so on. Japanese, you know, when they can pick, everybody's looking can you know, has the pick of jobs. Yeah, you know, they're finding it very, very tough, and they are liberalizing foreigner access into Japan to be able to address this, but it obviously isn't sufficient. You know, but this is where the situation's at. You know, again, for all the other problems some people have commented, maybe this is why the Japanese government keeps getting re-elected in spite of some of the stupid things that they do. Just that the economy, even though it's not going great, it still is doing good enough. Indeed, automation opportunities, and this is another reason why I think also Japanese are not afraid of robots, and they're not afraid of automation, because they actually recognize that this could be something that could actually be very beneficial here. By the way, I see that Mogberry Pie is in here, as is Chris. So good to see you guys. And I think I saw Robert Brooker up there as well, so good to see you. Lysander 45, by the way, also very good to see you. The tax return thing is going to make the Japanese Daigo thing problem worse. Daigo, I assume you mean the Bakugai, the explosive shopping thing, which has actually gone down. I think they're trying to bring it back. The soccer, again, I don't really, how can you like heat and humidity? Well, I don't, that's the thing, you know. But I do like summer in New Zealand. I mean, summer in New Zealand is great. I didn't understand the question when Japanese would ask me what season I like the best. But now I understand how you can not like summer, because it's really harsh in Japan. 2018, the Poland game where Japan just decided, I actually fell asleep. I decided, you know, man, the game's not going anywhere. And although the result wasn't secure and everything, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, it was a work night, and I just thought, screw it, I'm going to go to sleep for the final 15 minutes. I woke up, and much to my surprise, it appeared so did the Japanese soccer team. Just embarrassingly kicking around the ball. And to me, I mean, you know, playing to not win, like to stop playing, besides the fact of all those people who paid hundreds of dollars for those tickets to go and watch that game, all the people who traveled there for it, the idea that it could be a valid strategy in any sport to not play, I think it's a minimum unethical. I mean, as a referee, as a rugby referee, we card players for talking back, which again I think obviously soccer referees don't do, but they should do. I think if they're not playing properly, that team should have been carded. You know, they did that in order to maintain their no card record. Well, they should be carded for not playing. I mean, to me that was, it is a mind-boggling farce. You know, it's a shame. It burned a lot of goodwill. You could, basically every article about that game said, you know, I like Japan until this game, and now screw them. In a way, I suppose you could look at it, if you want to look at it positively, you could consider that Nishino. I remember when Nishino was a player, by the way, in '97. Fantastic, and that was a great team that he was a part of, by the way, and he was a defender in that thing. It's a bit like an offside trap, right? It's taking the risk that you're not going to get it right, and that the other team's going to score by running the opposite way. And I guess figuring that they were going to take the strategy of accepting the loss and just trying to keep the card situation was a bit of an offside trap move. So you could look at it as ballsy in that respect. But you know, again, it's kind of to me it shows why I like rugby. The fact that you can get on top of all the acting and so on. But anyway, Olivia D, very good to see you. Happy Canada Day. Oh, it's Canada Day. Well, happy Canada Day to all the people in Canada. This is super awesome. This is a little asteroid that Hayabusa, the first ever space probe to be able to actually touch down on an asteroid, get a sample and come back to Earth, even though it was only a few dust molecules in the end. The landing was a disaster. but they still were successful. Now they've got the second one that's about to go and pogo stick onto the surface and orbit around this thing for like a year. It looks like a dice kind of Death Star cross. It's really, really awesome. Ryugu, the little rock. And it's successfully gone into orbit around this tiny, tiny little rock. I mean, it's kind of amazing. And they're going to be apparently launching multiple probes onto the surface, which are going to collect up samples, which are going to come back to Earth. But hopefully they'll be validating the idea that, you know, of asteroid mining and living inside these things and so on. Super, super cool. ASDF, you're from Israel. Are you in Israel right now, ASDF? Actually, I always had an idea of Israel, Middle East being like hot and dry. Is it humid there? I guess you've got the Mediterranean, but well, there you go. Well, good to have people from Israel watching. Oh, this is super interesting. So this is actually from the Refugee Association of Japan, a group which I've actually featured before. And they've got a really good blog article here, just about, you know, perception and identity of half people. I have a son, of course, and I'm actually having an interesting time watching him grow up. He's nearly 9 now, and some of his half friends from school and so on. He goes to a regular school, but there are half kids there, both Chinese, Korean, and Western. Yeah, it's been interesting watching him sort of formulate his identity, and probably inevitably getting a little bit awkward about having a foreign dad probably is starting to kick in. But, you know, I mean, hell, we all go through periods where, you know, if you're not embarrassed at them being half, it's that they, you know, play polka music, or that they tell terrible jokes, or they wear pink shirts. I mean, it's always going to be something. But yes, Ty asked me, oh man, when was the last time I went surfing? Probably about a year, maybe more than that. The thing is, I can't go surfing when I'm with my family. That's the thing. You know, my son can't surf. So I have to be on my own. Man, I would love to go surfing so much, and it's been so long. Sloppy Pastrami, also very good to see you. Hopefully the probe doesn't blow up like the test rocket that just happened. Well, no, so the probe is by JAXA, it's by the National Space Agency, and they have their stuff together. The Hori Porno rocket, unfortunately that was the first attempted launch, and that just really, well, now that I realize that this is, you know, a man who's rich from pornography, and it looks like his rocket sort of didn't quite meet expectation, did it? All ended a little bit suddenly, and that happens sometimes. What can we say? But yes, anyway, coming back to perceptions of half people. Yeah, it looks at 4 different case studies in Japanese of sort of you know, people from different backgrounds. You know, how their experience of primary school was. You know, what they sort of struggled with, what was good, and different experiences from different people, good and bad. It's a really long, detailed thing, but it's kind of nice. It's worth reading if you can read Japanese. If you read through it slowly, you'll share it with different people. Yeah, it's super interesting. I'll talk about this more. Actually, it's an interesting subject as a parent of a half kid. But of course, Soka starts in 2 minutes, so I'm going to keep going. Hayabusa 2 is in orbit around that thing. More elderly people are returning their licenses, which is all very well, but in Japan, most of Japan, you need a car to survive. So the automated, given that the rapidly growing number of elderly people who keep causing accidents, like there was a lady today in Toride, which is in southern Iba, I guess, just below the north of Chiba, it's near Kashiwa, hit the wrong pedal and drove through a 7-Eleven and ran over some people. I mean, this is happening, like, you know, weekly now. Self-driving cars can't come to Japan soon enough, just because you can't live without cars in a lot of Japan. And there are a lot of increasing numbers of elderly that, you know, just can't drive. So it's a big problem, actually. Sergeant Bilko, so you know what I'm talking about. Good news, North Korea media confirms there is no abduction issue, apart from all the people who are still being abducted and held there. The LDP, you wonder how they keep getting re-elected. I mentioned before about the 2.2% unemployment and the 160 jobs for every 100 people looking. That's why they can get away with saying things like this. Elderly man gets up and says, "You women not having children, in the big picture, you're being very selfish." It's because people can't afford to have kids, because although the unemployment situation is excellent, you know, the cost of having kids, and the way that the LDP has destroyed the employment system to a degree has basically meant that people, there's a huge economy, half the working population is on like sort of part-time wages. And they don't have the economic security to make people feel like they can have kids, you know. So apart from all the other reasons that I've discussed before, but yes, he attacked the real enemy of this whole situation, the young women who are not having babies. How dare they? Yeah, everything will get fixed. Seriously, that whale has to stop jumping around like that in Tokyo Bay. It has to get the hell out. Seriously, like. again, the wrong, you know, you have to understand, this is Jim Crow for whales here, you know, you've got I am on your side, but you have to go now, okay? Well, you have to get out, because seriously, people are loving the whale jumping around and stuff, but seriously, not the place to be. Americans are still not willing to let a robot into their homes yet, because of course they watch movies where of course they, you know, destroy everybody and everything. In Japan, of course, not enough jobs. The culture, I think people are much more trusting of this sort of technology, which is why I think that this sort of thing, Japan is actually perfect for, and it's why I'm glad I'm here, because I love this stuff. So it's an interesting contrast that Americans are still not totally trusting. I mean, it's funny. Americans will have, you know, have guns in all their houses, but they're scared to have a robot. I mean, but yes. Anyway, that's America, and that's the show. 2301. Game's about to. I like driving. I do like driving, but you know, if you've ever been in a 5-hour traffic jam going to and from surfing, yes, you want self-driving cars. You know, I want to drive when I can drive. I don't want to be in a 5-hour traffic jam with my foot held up like this on an angle like this for 5 hours. You actually destroy your leg muscles. So I want self-driving, at least for traffic jams, and you know, I'd happily give it up for everything else for the convenience. So yes, anyway, that was fast. That's what she said, but I'm gonna let that go. And yes, check out MyChan TV. It's getting some significant upgrades today. Lauren, please go check it out. Tell me what you think. Use the intercom thing to drop me if you see any more. We are working on more bugs. There is more work being done, and probably in the process of fixing bugs. Things get a little bit broken, but I think we're close now. Some of the really big issues, particularly the videos loading and the bundles not refreshing automatically, those things are done, so that's all good. Remember, September 1st, mark it in your calendar. Word to your mother, word to the mother actually is correctly how you say it. Make sure you're at the party. It'll be awesome to see you and hang out with you in person on September 1st. It'll be great. Come to Tokyo. It's too hot in Tokyo. We got through it all. Robots, all that stuff. Whales, all that. Haafu and real estate, tax-free shopping. Awesome. Have a very good, use my typewriter. I will use whatever typewriter we need. Have a good one, everybody. It's been a short show tonight, but remember to like, by the way. I love the likes, and you know, yes, please like if you liked, and have a good one. See you next week. Boom, peace. He said, and then he had to awkwardly look for the stop streaming button, which is right there. So now it actually stops. I'm going to actually do dramatic finish now. Peace.